Tickets for the grand opening of Kai Tak's main stadium to go on sale tomorrow. Ombudsman suggests ways to improve efficiency in the reallocation of rental public housing units. Donald Trump says a trade deal could be agreed with China. Good evening and thank you for joining us. The grand opening of the Kai Tak Sports Park will take place on the 1st of next month starting at 6:30 p.m. But the event will not be broadcast live and instead be aired afterward on free TV channels and other platforms. Some 8,500 tickets will be up for grabs starting tomorrow, and buying one requires real name registrations. The tickets cost $10 each, with each person limited to buying 2 tickets. Timothy Lee tells us more.
The long-awaited opening ceremony of the Kai Tak Sports Park will be held on the 1st of March at 6:30 in the evening. Chief Executive John Lee will officiate the opening ceremony, followed by a 90-minute performance. Celebrity and athletic performances under 4 themes spanning sports and culture have been planned to all revelers. Visitors could expect to see star athletes such as Hong Kong's very own Olympic fencing champion Vivian Kong, the national team's table tennis Olympic gold medalist Fan Zhendong, and badminton legend Lin Dan. Martial arts superstar Donnie Yen will also be there, as well as legendary singers like George Lam and contemporary stars such as Michael Cheng-Tin-Fu. The events will not be broadcast live, and Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Rosanna Law said arrangements have taken into consideration viewers watching from abroad.
For overseas viewers, I think they also can, through the apps or through the channels of our different free TV channels, they can watch it together with Hong Kong audience at 9:30 at home and in their country or in their area.
When asked about the opening ceremony's effects on the government's budget deficit problem, Law noted authorities will be careful with their spending.
All the proceeds will go to the Hong Kong community chest for charitable use. The budget, of course, given the size of the Kai Tak main stadium and given also the involvement of quite a number of crew and staff members, I think we, of course, have included or we, of course, have reserved sufficient production budget for the events. But we will also be very mindful of ensuring that we do it very, very efficiently and effectively.
With scores of Hong Kong and mainland celebrities and athletes set to perform at the Kai Tak Sports Park opening ceremony, Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Rosanna Law stressed the canopy will not be open to ensure the arena's excellent sound quality. This Law reminded visitors not to live stream the event on their phones. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The government is poised to withdraw the franchise for the Tai Lam Tunnel at the end of May. The Legislative Council passed a 3rd reading today to lower toll fees at the tunnel after it comes under government control.
With
82 votes in favor and 1 abstention, the new time-based tolling scheme was approved by LegCo. Instead of charging a fixed toll of $58, private vehicles will be charged $45 during peak hours, $30 during daytime on weekdays, and $18 at quiet times, as well as during Sundays and public holidays. Commercial vehicles, including buses and trucks, will be charged a flat toll rate of $43. Taxis must pay $28, less than half of the current $58. The new tolling scheme will take effect on May 31st. Following an investigation, the Office of Ombudsman made 19 recommendations to the Housing Department and Housing Society to speed up the turnover of public rental housing. The Office of Ombudsman released its report on this investigation into the city's efforts to recover and reallocate public rental housing flats. The office said the Housing Department and the Housing Society reclaimed about 15,000 and 1,100 rental units respectively on average every year. Within 3 days of repossession of the unit, the Housing Department sends staff to inspect the flat and issues a list of refurbishment works for the contractor to complete within 44 days. And authorities will proceed with reallocation procedures of the flat taken back. The probe found that it took an average of 2.5 months for new tenants to move in over the past 2 years. For the Housing Society, it only introduced a new 14-day requirement to issue the list of refurbishment works after the Office of Ombudsman unveiled its investigation work. Units will not be allocated until halfway through the refurbishment work, and it will take an average of nearly 3 months for new tenants to move in.
The arrangements for refurbishment and the allocation of recovered flats need further revamping to speed up turnover of public housing flats and ensure optimal utilization of precious public housing resources.
The Ombudsman also recommended fast-tracking the recovery of public rental units whose tenants illegally sublet their flats to make money. The watchdog noted that after the notice to vacate was issued, some units continued to be occupied and subletted. 2 further notices were issued before the units were formally recovered. The Ombudsman said authorities should be more flexible in their handling depending on how serious the cases are. Another case from the Housing Society involved a tenant stranded overseas during the COVID pandemic who was unable to return his public rental housing unit back home, which delayed the flat recovery for half a year. The Ombudsman said the Housing Society should set a clearer deadline for the flat resumption procedure. The Office of the Ombudsman also proposes that the Housing Department and the Housing Society streamline the flat recovery procedures after the death of single tenants, including the handling of their belongings. Other improvements to be made include strengthening staff training and the data analysis system to enhance the allocation efficiency. The Housing Department and the Housing Society said they accept all proposals from the watchdog. The Communications Authority released a survey on broadcasting services in 2024 in Hong Kong. The 2 most watched channels are from TVB. The survey polled 1,640 people between June and September. Nearly 90% of respondents reported having tuned in to free television channels the month before, with an average viewing time of 2.6 hours a day. The most watched channels were TVB Jade and TVB News, with approximately 78% and 67% of respondents tuning in respectively. They were followed by ViuTV and TVB Plus. 85% watched news programs. Around 60% watched drama series. Around 26% said the requirement for English language broadcasting should be revoked, allowing stations to operate international language channels instead. 2.2% said that English channels can broadcast more non-English programs, including those in Mandarin or Japanese. The Communications Authority said the data will serve as a reference for handling license renewal applications for these 2 years. U.S. President Donald Trump said it is possible to reach a fresh trade deal with China. Washington reportedly wants China to buy more U.S. goods and boost investment in the United States. In his letter to the United States, Chinese Commerce Minister Wang Wentao expressed dissatisfaction with the U.S. tariffs slapped on Beijing.
But it would be great to keep...
Speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One, U.S. President Donald Trump said he was looking forward to President Xi Jinping's visit to the United States, but did not mention when.
I have a very good relationship with President Xi. I think a great relationship with President Xi. But remember, he loves China, and I love the USA. So, you know, right there's a little bit of competitiveness. But the relationship I have with President Xi is, I would say, a great one.
Trump said he was talking to the Chinese side about TikTok as the U.S. seeks to broker for the sale of the Chinese-owned short video sharing platform. When asked if a fresh trade deal with China could be on the way, Trump said it was possible. The New York Times reported on Wednesday that Trump is eyeing to strike a broad trade agreement with China instead of just adjusting the bilateral trade relations. The report said because of the outbreak of the COVID pandemic, China has not been able to purchase an additional $200 billion worth of American goods and services as pledged in the 2020 Sino-US trade deal. Trump still hopes that China will ramp up investment in the United States and even wants to touch on nuclear security and other issues through new agreements, with direct negotiations with President Xi Jinping. China and the U.S. have reportedly discussed arranging a meeting between their leaders in Beijing or Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. Reportedly, to gain more investment from China, apart from raising tariffs, Trump is planning to revoke its Permanent Normal Trade Relations or PNTR status granted to China more than 20 years ago. Another possible move, asking China to purchase large quantities of U.S. agricultural products, aircraft, and other goods. That, they say, is to target China's overcapacity and the Sino-U.S. trade balance. In Beijing, Commerce Secretary Wang Wentao sent a letter to U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick on Wednesday, expressing concern about the U.S. unilateral imposition of the 10% tariffs on Chinese imports. Wang said the White House's move undermines trade relations and hopes concerns from both sides can be resolved through dialogue. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin will visit each other this year. Speaking at the plenary session of the State Duma on Wednesday, Lavrov said Xi will visit Moscow in May. Putin, meanwhile, will visit China in late August or early September. Both visits are to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. Lavrov said Putin will invite U.S. President Donald Trump to attend a military parade in Moscow on May 9th. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and opposition leader Friedrich Merz faced off in a final debate on German television on Wednesday, ahead of elections on Sunday. Polls have Merz's Union Party in the lead, with Scholz's SDP party expected to fall to a heavy defeat. Nasri Karim has more.
A debate that could decide Germany's future. Chancellor Olaf Scholz was asked by the moderator what he could say in the debate that would convince voters to support his SPD party on Sunday. Scholz, facing possibly Germany's biggest election defeat since 1890, insisted that many voters would only decide on the day of the election and return him to power. To which opposition leader Friedrich Merz said dryly, "No miracle will happen over the next 4 days. Your chancellorship should be over on Sunday." Pre-election polls have put Merz's centre-right Union bloc in the lead ahead of Scholz's Social Democrats and Robert Habeck's Greens. During the debate, the candidates touched on migration, the economy and security. In his campaign, Merz has made curbing irregular migration a central issue, demanding a more restrictive approach, particularly since a recent deadly knife attack by a rejected asylum seeker. Merz said he would only sign a coalition agreement that included a reversal of migration and economic policies. Merz has been accused of aligning with the far-right AfD party because of his hardline view on immigration. However, he insists his mission to curtail immigration is to prevent right-wing populism. I am standing here to avoid exactly that, he said. That is why I will only sign a coalition agreement that includes a turnaround on migration and the economy. Nazri Karim, TVB News.
Hamas has handed over the bodies of 4 hostages. The Red Cross took them from Gaza and passed them to Israel's military. It is the latest movement in the ceasefire deal, which has held for a month. David Garrett reports.
The Red Cross arriving in Khan Yunis to transport the bodies of 4 dead hostages handed over by Hamas. The humanitarian group has overseen the transfer of 24 living captives during the ceasefire. These are the first dead bodies to be released. 4 black coffins were displayed on a stage. Some of the handover took place behind a screen erected by the Red Cross. Masked men carried the coffins across to them. Red Cross staffers covered the coffins in white sheets before placing them inside the vehicles. The remains of Shiri Bibas and her 2 children, Ariel and Kafir, and an unrelated man, Oded Lifshitz. Hamas says all 4 were killed in Israeli airstrikes. The Bibas family died in the first month of the war. The militant group say they did everything possible to keep them alive. Kafir was the youngest captive taken on October 7th, 2023. He was 9 months old. Ariel was 4. At the other end of the age spectrum, Lifshitz was 83 when he was abducted. The Red Cross convoy drove away with the 4 bodies inside. The handover process took 30 minutes. Negotiations on phase 2 of the peace plan are expected this week. 6 more living hostages are set to be freed on Saturday in exchange for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners as phase 1 continues. Across the border, crowds lined the route to pay their respects as the coffins went past. Many turned out carrying Israeli flags in a sombre atmosphere. Also crowds in Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, where people wanted to mark the moment the bodies were handed to the Israeli military. The exchange was not broadcast in Israel. Instead, images of the Bibas family were shown on a large screen. Shiri's husband was released alive earlier this month. Netanyahu called it a very difficult day of grief for Israel, while President Isaac Herzog asked for forgiveness for not bringing everyone back safely. David Garrett, TVB News.
Italy is urging people to stay away from the lava flow on Mount Etna after a huge influx of travelers keen to see the incredible sight. The images of the lava glowing against the snow have seen thousands of tourists flock to Sicily. Eruptions began a fortnight ago, with lava escaping at 3,000 meters. Mountain police say curious people are getting too close to the burning rock and worry about their safety. People are supposed to stay 500 meters away, but many have ignored the rules and got much closer. Officers say so many people are arriving and they can't control the crowds. Some travelers have had to be rescued because they did not have adequate warm clothing and were wearing trainers. Back locally, the staff vacancy rate at the Correctional Services Department stands at 10%, despite the record high number of inmates. But the department said it will implement the government's policy direction in trimming its expenditure as a result of the budget deficit. Speaking at the year-end press conference, the Commissioner of Correctional Services, Wong Kwok Hing, admits it could affect their operations, but the department would prudently manage finances and make use of technology to enhance efficiency with more flexible allocation of manpower. Last year, the Correctional Services Department saw 18,000 new admissions in correctional institutions. That marked an increase of 7% year-on-year. Among them, 410 were involved in cases related to the 2019 social unrest and violations of the national security law. The Hong Kong Palace Museum is now showing around 20 newly arrived Chinese and French court treasures in its Forbidden City Versailles exhibition, featuring items showcasing the cultural exchange between the French and Qing dynastic courts. The museum hopes the treasures could foster intercultural appreciation. Timothy Lee tells us more.
In the latest addition to the Hong Kong Palace Museum's exhibition, featuring priceless treasures from both the Forbidden City and Palace of Versailles, visitors have a chance to see the peak creative output from the Qing dynasty. Among the newly arrived paintings is a portion of an album titled Leveling the Farmland, which depicts Yin Jin, the future Yongzheng emperor, as a farmer toiling in the fields in an act to please his father, the Kangxi emperor. This as artwork featuring the latter's youthful days were also displayed in the new collection.
One of the rarest additions to the Forbidden City Versailles exhibition at the Hong Kong Palace Museum is this 17th century painting depicting the Kangxi Emperor in military attire. Its uniqueness comes in the fact that it's one of the only paintings to depict the emperor in his youth.
Besides paintings, the museum displayed a bow and quiver that belonged to the Qianlong emperor. The equipment, while exemplifying the monarch's hunting prowess, also serves as a legacy of the Qing royalty's interest in European textiles.
The reason why we chose these objects is because the materials used for these horse blankets and quiver and bow case, the fabrics are European fabrics, very probably from France. So the story behind is the interest of the Qing court with European textiles, including French textiles. I think the key messages we want to convey to the visitors are the mutual respect and learning between the two grand palaces and of course the two states at the time.
The exhibition will remain open to the public until the 4th of May this year. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.